Welcome back to the Ultimate Spider-Man storyline. Today we're going to be continuing with Volume 6, with a segment of the superhero storyline that a lot of you have been waiting for, the Black Symbiote. If you're just joining us for the first time, every Saturday morning you can find yourself watching some Ultimate Spider-Man right here at Comicstorian, catching yourself up on one of the better Spider-Man storylines in the last 15 years. It does have an eventual conclusion though, so make sure you keep up to date with it by following this channel. Now in our last video, Peter found himself the target of a copycat superhero who was actually robbing the banks posing as him. While during another robbery, Peter set out to find out who this man was, it turned out that it was just a random guy. In the end, Peter managed to stop that man, and Mary Jane told him that she couldn't be with him anymore because of his superhero lifestyle. So he went home after school, and all he could do was think about Mary Jane. With everything that's going on in his life, she's the only person that he could talk to, and now she's gone. Peter thinks that maybe he should just call her. If she hears his voice, maybe she'll come around. She was supposed to love him. But just as Peter gets the courage to dial, he throws the phone aside, stating, "No, it's a stupid idea." As the phone flies through the air and crashes into the wall, Peter goes to pick it back up and then notices a door behind a box where the phone landed. He pushes open the small wooden door and finds boxes, all of them marked Parker. After going through a few of them, he finds old pictures of himself and his father, and among them a videotape. He runs up to his room to play the video and sees that it was from when he was a small child. His family was having a picnic with Aunt May and Uncle Ben and another family. As Peter continues to watch though, May walks up behind him asking where did he find this. He tells her that he found a bunch of old boxes in the basement but May stops him, telling him that her and Ben were waiting until he was old enough to see this. It seems that now he's old enough. Peter kind of remembers that other family, the Brocks. He was his father's partner, and May tells him that that's right. He used to play with Eddie Jr. even though he was a bit older, and after the accident of both of their parents, Eddie moved away. May then suggests that maybe he should try and find Eddie. Maybe he can tell him what he found. So Peter does just that, and after a quick internet search, he manages to find Eddie's address and even a phone number. So Peter calls and actually gets a hold of Eddie Jr. The two of them talk for a while, and Eddie says that they should meet up, catch up on old times. And the next day, Peter stops by Eddie's dorm room to head out for some coffee. As they sit, Eddie says that he's actually going to college for astrophysics. And Peter tells him that that's actually what his major is going to be as well. Eddie laughs, telling him that it would just be like them, trying to impress their fathers. Peter tells him actually that's what he wanted to come by for. While going through his father's old things, there was a videotape of all of them having a picnic. Eddie thinks back to that day and is just amazed. And then he says that since they're on this topic, he has something for Peter as well. A little while later, Eddie takes Peter over to a lab that he's been using for school to show him something. As Eddie opens up a small locker, Peter sees a small beaker full of black liquid, and he asks what it is. Eddie grins and tells him that is their inheritance. He goes on to state that this is what their fathers were working on. This is their life's work, or rather, what it would have been if they were given a chance to continue their life's work. Peter asks what's it supposed to be, and Eddie says that currently it's just a pile of protoplasmic goo, but what it's supposed to be is a cure for cancer. Though he wasn't able to make much sense of it, his professor has been helping him get through some of it when they happened to come across this. He takes out another small container and pulls out a sheet of paper labeled the suit. He explains that the suit was supposed to attach itself to a person tailored to their specific DNA, and what it would do is help the body produce its own natural toxins to fight off the cancer. The current work has brought them to phase 2, which was supposed to enhance the physical strengths and natural abilities of the patient. But with them running out of their funding, their fathers took up jobs with Trask Industries to try and support it. However, because they were work for hire, it meant that everything that they were working on was technically owned by that company, which meant the suit as well. Eddie then hands Peter a journal left by Eddie Sr. stating that he was the one who pushed Ray into working for this company when Ray said that they shouldn't. Because of it, now they're going through lawsuits to try and finish the project that they spent their lives working on. As Peter flips through the paperwork, Eddie tells him that that's the last part, was just 2 before, but under his breath, Peter tells him no. And Eddie says that it all happened just as they were coming back from their meeting with the lawyers. So Peter then asks if that's the case, what's with the black stuff? And Eddie says that it was something that they were working on behind Trask's back. It was supposed to be used as proof of ownership of the suit, but they didn't get far enough with it. Eddie begins to pack up everything, saying how their fathers were really onto something, but they may have been several years ahead of their time. Professor Connors said that even if the suit didn't work, it would still create some new and interesting questions. Peter thinks back and tells Eddie that he mentioned something about the suit being made for someone's specific DNA. Just who did they use to test it on? Eddie begins to place the beaker back into the locker, and he tells him that they used Ray's DNA. The following night, Peter goes over the tapes more and more, watching how his father would talk about this project. But as the videos went on, it showed Ray dealing with the lawsuits and talking about how all he wanted to do was just help people. Now their work will just be taken over and there's nothing they can even do. As Peter heard that, he decided no, there's always some company trying to take some someone else's work and make profit on it, but not this time. He will finish what his father started. All he needs to do is get a small sample of the stuff that Eddie has kept locked away. So he sneaks back into the labs and pulls out a sample from the beaker, but he spills it onto his hands. His spider sense begins to go crazy, and the liquid begins to spread, covering his hands. It doesn't stop, and it continues covering the rest of his arm and soon his entire body. Peter tries to pull it off, but soon all that's left is a smoldering black blob. As the outer crust hardens, Peter bursts out of it! But what he finds is that the suit has completely covered him. Elsewhere in the city, a pop singer has finished her concert, and she's getting ready to leave when she's suddenly taken hostage. As her limo speeds off, the men inside wearing masks tell her that she made more than enough money to pay for a ransom, right? However, as the men drive off, they hear a loud thump on the roof of the limo. Seconds later, Peter opens up the roof, jumping into the passenger seat, asking if it's prom season already. Everyone stares at him and he asks, "What? Prom season? Limo?" Still with no answer, Peter punches the driver, stating, "Tough crowd." One of the men in the back fires, hitting Peter in the shoulder, but the new suit takes the hit and just repairs itself. Peter then quickly shoots a web back, covering up the gun, and then another web at the second man. The men begin to scream, and Peter shouts that they need to settle down or he will pull this car over right now. The singer too begins to scream, so Peter webs up her mouth, telling her that he's sorry, but he already has a little bit of a headache, so... And finally, after stopping the limo, Peter gets out and lets the singer out and tells everyone that for the record, they're just friends. An officer pulls up telling Peter to put his hands in the air, and as he does, he fires a web and swings away. He tells himself that this suit is amazing. Whatever his dad invented is just amazing. First taking that bullet, and he's also stronger and faster. All he has to do is think and a web appears. Over at the coin laundry, a man fires a gun, running out, telling people that he told them not to move. Peter chases down the man and corners him in a dark alley. But as he crawls down towards him, the man begins to fire, and Peter just knocks the gun out of his hand and throws him into a pile of boxes. He grabs the man, telling him that there's nowhere that he can hide, and as he looks, he sees a flashback to the shooter who shot Ben. Peter mutters that he was the one. He was the one who killed Uncle Ben. The man says that he didn't know that the man that he shot was his uncle, and then Peter screams. The suit begins to grow fangs and a long whip-like tongue. His voice changes as he screams to the man that he doesn't deserve to live! He doesn't deserve life! Peter begins to strangle him, and the man tries to tell him to stop, but suddenly Peter starts to pull the suit away, throwing the man, asking, "What's happening?" As he struggles, the suit and him struggle to gain control over his body, and Peter runs through the city. After leaping off of a building, he lands on a set of power lines, frying both him and the suit. Back over at Eddie's dorm, he turns on the TV to see a news report on Spider-Man, showing off the new black suit. As Eddie watches, he begins to think that it couldn't be, and then he starts to head over to the lab. Once he gets inside, he sees Peter standing there holding the beaker, and he asks if that's him, and then he looks up to see the window opened and a set of hand-in footprints crawling in. Eddie shouts, "What have you done?" And Peter tells him it's not what he thinks. Something horrible has happened. The thing that their fathers created, it's uncontrollable. It must be destroyed. Eddie grabs for the beaker, and Peter lifts Eddie by his shirt, and the two stare at each other. After realizing it, Peter sets Eddie back down, and Eddie tells him, You're Spider-Man." Peter tells him that that doesn't matter right now. What they need to do is destroy this. He'll explain everything after that is done. A few minutes pass, and Eddie tells him that is all that's left of his father. And Peter tells him he knows exactly how he feels, but this caused him to almost kill a man. This is a cancer. Even with only spilling a drop, it took over, and without his powers, there would have been no way that he could have survived it. There are people out there who would go to extreme lengths to have this, and that's why they have to destroy it. Eddie sighs, telling him, it's not like he can stop him anyway. Peter says, look, right now he's the only one who knows about him and his powers. That's how important this is. This stuff is way too dangerous. Eddie takes a seat and he says that he's amazing. He looks 12, but look at what he's accomplished. The two smile and Eddie gets back up, telling him that he just needs to go and digest all of this for a bit. He'll be fine. So after Eddie leaves, Peter makes his way over to the power plant to drop the beaker onto a smokestack to incinerate the liquid. But a short while after Peter left to go do that, Eddie returned to the lab. He checks the locker where he keeps the beakers and he sees that it's empty, and he says that he really did it. The little jerk took it. He then opens a second locker, stating how if they're going to experiment, they need to keep the specimens separate. And he pulls out a second beaker filled with more black liquid, and he drips it on his hand. And that brings us to the halfway mark of Volume 6, where we had the entire Black Spider-Man arc really shrunk down into this 4-issue arc. But the next one, that's when we're gonna finally meet the Ultimate Venom. So I hope you're excited about that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with your Saturday morning Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, or, me reading the comic book to you. And don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.